Okay, good morning, everyone. It's 10 o'clock. I'm Jennifer Garrett. I am the Director of Public Affairs for the Wisconsin Department of Safety and Professional Services. Thanks for joining us today so that you can learn a little bit more about Licensee, our online self-guided license application platform that launched on May 16th, which was just last Monday. I am here with my colleagues, Dan Harris, our Assistant Deputy Secretary, and Sachin Raj from our partner MTX. Dan will be fielding most of our questions, but Sachin's on hand for the more technical things. And behind the scenes, Kimberly Wood is keeping us running smoothly, so she might chime in if we encounter any stumbling blocks or need any further instruction or clarity. So before we get started, I want to go through a few orders of business so that everyone knows how the meeting will run. All attendees will be muted throughout the entire session, and anyone with a question should pose it directly into the chat directed toward me. Then I will review the questions and field them to, or send them to Dan. We're doing it that way so that we can combine similar questions and maximize our time here. So again, please post your questions in the chat and direct them to me, Jennifer Garrett. So also, just so you're aware, we're continually developing resources about licensing and putting them on our website. So if you go to dsps.wi.gov and follow the licensee link to our customer information page, you can find user guides and videos, and eventually we'll have more robust FAQs. There's also a communications kit there with some social media graphics and tools that and newsletter language that you can use to communicate with your stakeholders if you so choose. Then, as you may have noticed, we have a sign language interpreter who will be here for the session, and we will be recording, or we are recording the sessions, and we'll make them available later. And so that's all I have to get us started. Before I turn things over to Dan to officially begin our program, Kimberly's going to play a quick video for you.
This is your future. It's where you want to be and where you want to build your career. You have done the hardest part. Now it's time to put your education and skills to work. You're ready to help keep individuals, families, and communities healthy, happy, and safe. There's just one more step: your license. The Wisconsin Department of Safety and Professional Services is pleased to present Licensee, our online self-guided application system that makes applying for your license as easy as possible. With Licensee, you'll be on your way to joining the workforce and making a difference for the people of Wisconsin. You can create an account, access, complete, and submit an application, review and manage your application and account, and find additional resources and support. Your future is at your fingertips. Visit licensee.wisconsin.gov today and continue your journey to becoming a licensed professional.
So I think that's then my cue. My name is Dan Harris. I am the Assistant Deputy Secretary with the Wisconsin Department of Safety and Professional Services. So excited that you can all join us today and excited for the interest. This is now our fourth public session, in addition to I think over a dozen sessions that we've held for stakeholders in various industries. Speaking of which, I do want to call out a few folks who've joined us today who I recognized when I was scrolling through the list. I wanted to call out Tammy from the Wisconsin Chiropractic Association. I also wanted to call out Rochelle from the Wisconsin Primary Healthcare Association. Both of those organizations are key partners of the departments as we work to make sure that folks in Wisconsin have access to the services they need in a safe and productive manner. So thank you both for joining us today. Our department was, to provide a little history, was born out of a merger in 2011 from the parts of two departments. It brought with it a patchwork of paper processes and elementary software systems, many of which still required step-by-step manual intervention by our staff. As we all know, the pandemic has impacted us ways large and small, and our department has worked diligently to meet needs of Wisconsinites during the pandemic. One thing that became clear, that in order to meet the increasing demand of our licensed occupations, and more specifically our healthcare occupations, who have been working to help us recover from the pandemic, we needed to provide a solution that was designed for this century. Many, if not all, of our systems were designed and implemented in the mid-1990s. That's why we partnered with MTX and Salesforce to implement a public sector solution built on private sector know-how. During development, the guiding principle for this new program and this new platform was, how can we empower our applicants, our customers, to drive their application process forward? Every step of this process was built in an effort to maximize the ability of the applicant to control the process and move through each step at the speed that works for them. Today, you will see a video which follows a fictional applicant, Arthur Dent, through the license application process. Arthur is applying for his advanced practice nurse prescriber license. While some of the requirements may differ from license to license, the experience and the process should remain very similar. With that, I'd like to invite Kim from our staff to play the demo video, after which I will be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
All right. So upon landing on this homepage, Arthur is going to need to initially register for an account so that he's able to complete and submit his application. So to do that, we'll click on this register for an account button, and that's going to open up a registration form. On that registration form, Arthur would provide things like his first name, last name, email address, set up a password, date of birth, social, his home address, as well as a different mailing address if needed, as well as his phone number. When I click this register button, there are a few things that a couple things that happen. The first thing that's going to happen is I'm going to receive an email from the system notifying me that I've registered for the licensee portal and giving me a link to be able to go and log in on that portal. Along with that, the application will sign me in and bring me to this landing page for applicants. So this is the first page that's seen after an applicant logs into the portal. Once that registration process is completed, we're really at that point ready to begin the application process. And again, Arthur's looking to apply for that advanced practice nurse prescriber license. So I can see I have a question here: what license can we help you apply for today? And a drop-down filled with license types. So in this instance, I'm going to choose advanced practice nurse prescriber and click next. The very first screen in the application flow is really one where we're asking which application method are we going to be using to apply for this license. So for today's demo, I'm going to be selecting licensure by examination. And once I'm ready to begin my application, I can then use and click on the next button, which would open up an application flow and really get me into the application proper. Landing on the application flow, the very first step that we run into is our instruction screen with some brief instructions about what needs to be provided and how to complete this application. We can move through to the next step of the application by using the next button. And that's going to bring me to the personal information step of the application. So here we're collecting demographic information, validating we have the right name, the right date of birth, ethnicity, gender. Also, we have our contact information. And as you can see, that is editable so that if they need to update that information via this application intake flow, they can certainly do that by updating their phone number or changing their home or even changing their mailing address as well. After the user has input all of that information, we have some additional questions based on the advanced practice nurse prescriber asking whether we've been licensed, what's our primary state of residence, do we currently hold a registered nurse license, and what are our current certifications. So we'll click Save and Next, and that's going to take us to the next step of the application, which is going to be our school information. And as you can see, ahead of time, I've already added in the 2 schools that our applicant is going to be listing. When I click on this Add School button, it's going to bring up a modal looking just like this. It's going to require me to fill in all of these fields before clicking Done to save that school information. So the school name, the street, the city, the state, the degree, and the graduation date are all required. If someone accidentally clicks this in error, they can use the little X here in the upper right-hand corner to cancel out of that selection. Or if they update the information and click Done, it's going to edit the information in this table. We'll go ahead and click Save and Next here and jump into the specialty step. On the specialty step of the application, I'm able to indicate that I'm certified, in this case, as a nurse practitioner, the subspecialties of adult and acute care. If I choose certified registered nurse anesthetist or certified nurse midwife, those do not have those subspecialties, whereas nurse practitioner and clinical nurse specialists do. So you can see those are displayed and required based on that requirement. All right, we'll click Save and Next here to jump to our Veterans Fee Waiver step. And you're going to see this functionality quite a bit over the next few steps. So I'll just kind of use this step as an example to talk through it. Here we have 3 questions. If you qualify, you're requesting a waiver of your initial credentialing fee. Now, in this case, I've answered no. However, if I were to respond with a yes, we would have an additional question requesting that we input that WDVA voucher code number into this field, and you can see that it's required. You're going to see this a lot in the declaration, an additional declaration step as well. Just wanted to kind of call it out here. So we'll go ahead and choose no there. We'll go ahead and use the Save and Next button to jump to our license history step. In our license history step, we're asked first to indicate any states in which we've been licensed. Now, in this example, this applicant has been licensed in Wisconsin, so I do have that one checked. I do have a none option if needed, but otherwise I can indicate as many states as I've been licensed in. Below that, we are able to identify the states in which we've been licensed by exam. And of course, in this case, where Wisconsin is the only state that I've been licensed in, I'm also going to indicate Wisconsin is where I've been licensed by exam. So click Save and Next here. That's going to take us into our first step of declarations. Our declaration step have a series of questions that we have to respond to. With each of those questions, if we indicate yes to any of them, typically we'll have a field and we'll be asked to share details about that response. In a couple of cases, we do have just instructions for additional forms that need to be submitted if responding yes to this question. All right, so I'm going to use the Save and Next button again. We're going to move now to our additional declarations. For our additional declarations, we have some definitions that are laid out in the top half of the screen. And so we have some very descriptive definitions of medical condition, chemical substances, illegal use of controlled and dangerous substances, and then some questions relating to those definitions. You'll notice with question number 11, I currently have it indicated with no. If I were to say yes, I am both required to explain as well as to respond to questions 12 and 13. Whereas if I click no, I'm not required to respond to those additional questions. So we'll go ahead and click Save and Next. Moving into our supporting document step. So here we can see we have a list of documents that could be required. We have some of those marked as absolutely required in all cases. I have gone ahead and uploaded some sample documents there. In order to upload a document, I can use one of these upload buttons. That's going to give me some information about the file size, what kind of files, and also let me know that multiple files can be uploaded. For example, here, I'll click on Upload, and we will grab a file to be uploaded. And once that file is uploaded, I can click Close, and you can see now that file has been added to this list. In this instance, this is not the right file. I've made a mistake here, so I need to remove this, and I can do so using the trash can or delete icon here next to that supporting document. In the instructions that are given to the third parties, you're going to have instructions to come to the licensee portal, and they don't need to register or anything like that. They'll go to this third party document.
So the video was paused for just a moment because I'm not fond of the transition in the video, and I wanted to provide a little bit more context. So in any licensure process, particularly in our healthcare occupations, there are a number of third-party documents where by state statute, those documents have to be provided directly by the third party. And so what we've designed is a system that provides a portal that third parties can directly upload those documents into the system and immediately have them associated with the relevant applicants. So the process that the applicant will follow is inside of their application. There will be information advising them as to what documents and what information is required to come from third parties. They will then be able to contact the third party and provide that third party with the information that's required, as well as their application ID number. And with that information, they will be able to then direct the third party to what to upload to this portal. The information will also include upload instructions for that third party. Again, as I indicated at the start of the conversation, the key here was empowering the applicant to drive the process forward, making sure that the applicant had the tools to move their application to the next step as quickly and as seamlessly as possible. With that, I'll ask him to continue the video, and looking forward to questions at the end.
That are given to the third parties, you're going to have instructions to come to the licensee portal, and they don't need to register or anything like that. They'll go to this third party document upload. And so they're asked to search for an application number, and on that form, the applicant will be instructed to fill out this application ID. So this application number is going to be how the third party references what documents they're submitting or what application they're submitting for. So we'll go ahead and take that individual application ID and paste it into the application number and search. And so that's going to show us what profession it is that's being applied for, as well as that application number. Once I have confirmed that, yes, this is the correct application that I'm trying to provide documentation for, I can use the select button. And now you can see there's a list of different documents that I can provide, which may or may not be coming from the same party. And so if I needed to provide this certification of master's or doctoral degree, I would use the upload button, which gives me our upload modal. And I would find a document to upload on my computer. Once it's uploaded, and then at this point, I can close the window. I don't really need to continue to stay here or save anything. At this point, when we view this application internally, we will see that that document has now been uploaded. So here is the certification or master's doctoral degree, and this is that file that I just uploaded. All right, so once we've uploaded all of our supporting documents that are required, we would then be able to use the Save and Next button, which would bring us to our attestation step. So here, Arthur would be able to indicate that he is a citizen or national of the United States, as well as provide his digital signature after reviewing all of the information and agreeing to sign. All right, so we'll use the Save and Next button here to enter our final step of the application flow, which is our payment step. From here, we're shown a table of what are the fees that are currently being charged, as well as some optional choices that we can make, including ordering a wall certificate or an expedited fee. In this instance, we'll just keep the base fees as the amount, and you can see here, it gives us a total amount at the bottom to be paid is $132. Now, in order to pay and submit this pay for and submit this application, I'm going to use this Pay and Submit button. All right, so when I click on the Pay and Submit step here, I'm going to be taken out of licensee for a moment and into the payment gateway. And so to complete my payment here, it does pull over information about the from the applicant's profile information is brought over. The phone number and email address does have to be typed, and then we can choose our payment method. We can take ACH debit as well as credit and debit cards. Once they've input all the information, I use the Continue button to be shown a review step. Select the right state here. They're brought to a review step where they're able to review what is going to be charged and the rest of the information that's been provided, and then they can use the Confirm button to make that payment. They're provided with their confirmation number, and then once they click Continue, they'll be brought back into Licensee and be displayed as success message there as well, letting us know that the payment's been received and the application has been successfully submitted. Along with that, I'm going to get a couple of other notifications. So one notification is going to be a confirmation that my application has been submitted, and the other is going to be a receipt from the system telling me about that payment. Once all applicant supplied documentation and third-party supplied documentation has been submitted, the application will be reviewed and hopefully approved. Once approved, licensees will then be able to log back into the licensee portal and print their license certificate by clicking on My Approved Licenses, using the Action button next to the license for which they would like to download or print a certificate, and then using the View Certificate command. All we need to do is to click Download next to the type of certificate that we would like to download and print, and that certificate will then be displayed and can either be downloaded, printed, or both.
So that does conclude our video. Before we get to questions, I did notice a few more folks I wanted to just call out as good partners in the work we do at the agency. I see Erica from the Wisconsin Dental Association is on the call. Angie with the Wisconsin Housing Alliance. I know we're not quite to their professions just yet, but I'm sure they're eager to get a look at what is coming. And then I noted also that State Senator Carpenter's staff is on the line with us. So thanks to all of them for joining us. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jen to manage the question and answer portion of the session.
Thanks, Dan. And again, I noticed a lot of people came in a little bit after we started. I'm Jennifer Garrett. I'm the Director of Public Affairs for the department. And I will be posing questions to Dan. If you have questions, please put them in the chat and direct them to me. All of our attendees will be muted, and I'll be reviewing and combining questions so that we make the best use of our time. So Dan, the first question is about Act 10 or temporary licenses. Can a physician still apply for a temporary license and do that through licensee? And if so, does the employer also need to complete a form as they did in our previous system?
Yes, they can still apply for a license. At the very start of the video, you will have noted different license application methods. In this video, I believe there were 3, and Act 10 was one of those. The employer does still have to submit the employer form. They will get an application ID number from their applicant and use the third-party upload portal to submit that form. And I did notice a couple of things that came directly to me, or it looks like one item, so I'll answer that really quickly. The timeline of acknowledgement for receipt of third-party documents. So what the third party will see when uploading immediately on upload is a green check mark indicating that the document's been successfully uploaded. if you're looking for confirmation beyond that, you should contact your applicant, and that document should immediately appear in their profile, which they can log in and see.
Thanks, Dan. Then there's some questions about when other professions are going to be added to licensees. Specifically, do we have a timeline for wholesale distributors of prescription drugs?
I don't know that we have a specific timeline just yet. We are in active discussions about what will come next for this program. It's, the broad timeline is going to be through the rest of this year and into 2023, but the exact timing of each profession is still under discussion.
And then in the section where students enter schools that they attended, do they include schools that they may not have graduated from or that may have conferred an unrelated degree?
I think that really is dependent on the requirements of the occupation. And so if there was coursework that they took at that institution, which is relevant to their application for licensure, then they should absolutely include that. There are professions out there where as opposed to necessarily graduating from a program, they can demonstrate competency through having completed the requisite coursework. So it's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all answer.
Thanks, Dan. We've had this one before, but since this is a new group, if a student began their application in OLAS, which is one of our legacy systems, anticipating that they were going to be graduating this May, but then for some reason didn't graduate and now anticipates graduating in December, will they maintain their application in OLAS, or should they start over in licensee when they're when they have graduated?
My recommendation on that very specific issue is to start over in licensee once they've graduated. The exact timing of the decommissioning of OLAS is still up in the air because it's largely dependent on working through some of the active applications that exist in that system. And so I can't say with certainty that OLAS will still be an active system in December.
Can employers apply for physicians? So can, in essence, fill out all the application and then have the physician review and complete the attestation? And if so, what email address do they use?
The application, as you indicated with regard to the attestation piece, is the physician's application. It's a legal document that they're signing to the department. And so the recommendation is certainly that the physician should be the one completing the application. I do have a recognition that in different industries that happens differently. And in some cases, the physician provides registration information to a third party. That does present some security challenges. So you would want to make sure internally between yourself and the applicant that those security issues were recognized and procedures were in place to handle those things.
Okay, thanks, Dan. And then if someone has already submitted an application in our legacy system but hasn't received their license and hasn't had an update recently, should they just start over in licensee?
No, at this point, starting a new application may cause additional delays due to confusion between the two applications. The recommendation is to continue the process. And I know that Jen provides some relevant contact information at the end of the session for folks to reach out who have individual concerns.
After I pose the next question, I'll go ahead and put that in the chat right now. If you already have a training license, do you have to resubmit your education and other requirements in licensee, since some of those education requirements for the training license are the same as the kind of next consecutive license?
Yeah, that's another question that's a little bit difficult to answer. specifically because based on the profession, that differs a little bit. With some of the professions, the permanent license is a continuation of the training license application process. If that's the case, you should continue working through the existing processes, because we have not yet transitioned all existing licenses into the system. That will happen over the next, for healthcare license, that will happen over the next 2 months. For other professions, the permanent license is a whole separate application for the permanent license, in which case you would want to start a new application in licensee. And the most effective way would be to upload the documentation again if it's readily available to you. However, we certainly will be working behind the scenes to connect those two licenses as is required, but it may take some additional time to do that.
And then at the very beginning of the application, how does someone know which kind of application process they're choosing? There's application by exam, application by endorsement. What do those mean, and how do you know which one you need?
Yeah, each of the license methods should have a hover over. So when you hover over the text, the relevant terms, it should provide additional descriptions about what the methods are and what they mean. For most people, license by exam is the standard application process. That's the process through which new graduates would primarily obtain a license in Wisconsin.
And do we have timelines for when applicants would get confirmation of receipt of third-party documents? So, the applicant, as you know, Dan, some people know our applicants will get an application number that they provide to third parties who have to submit their documents on their behalf. So how does the applicant know when that's happened, and how long does that typically take for them to get that notification once the document is uploaded?
Yeah, I think that there's two potential avenues for the applicant to get that information. I think the first and most expedient is for the applicant to log into their profile and review both the met and unmet items in their application. If a third party uploads a document, that item may be met or unmet, but it'll be visible to the applicant that the document has been uploaded. The other method is when our staff review that document, after reviewing that document, they will send a status update email to the applicant, either providing additional information or asking the applicant to log in and review the actions that have been taken relative to their application. So both are possible. I would expect that both would happen with a level of expediency, but certainly the fastest is just for the applicant to log in and see the information.
Great. What happens if a graduate is not a citizen of the United States? Can they still apply for a Wisconsin license?
In certain circumstances. So work authorization is required in the United States in order to be issued a license. That's a requirement of both state and federal statute. And so if they are not a citizen but have work authorization, they can certainly apply for a license.
And then Dan, just a note that some people have been asking whether that demo video is available for view, and it is online under our customer information resources. What if, so now I'm on to a question. What if a student heard from a clearinghouse that their transcript was provided to the department, but then got an email from the department that the transcript was not received? I'm assuming this is our previous system. What happens, or what should they do if they feel that there's a discrepancy from the information they believe has been provided and what the agency is telling them we've received?
I would reach out via the contact information. I mean, this sounds like probably a specific instance. one of the things that we are excited about that we're in the process of is actually creating an electronic relationship with the National Clearinghouse to allow students to upload transcripts directly and fairly seamlessly into their application. We have not yet completed that work. I would anticipate that work happening over the next couple of months, but definitely looking forward to being able to handle those automatically, if you will.
What if someone completed their application and submitted it and then realized they made a mistake? Is there a way for them to go back and correct portions of their application?
It would depend on the portion of the application and the mistake. Post-submission, the upload portion of the application is still available to the applicant, so additional information can continue to be provided to the reviewer that's assigned to their application. Post-application, they should either use the Help tab in the system, or they should communicate with their reviewer. Once their reviewer has reviewed their application for the first time, they will receive a status update email. They can respond to that email, and their reviewer will receive that response. And so they can identify that information directly with their reviewer at that time.
And then our compact licenses, currently Wisconsin offers compact nursing and physician licenses. Are those included in licensee, or are those a separate process?
Candidly, I don't have a ton of visibility on those licenses, but I know they are initiated for certain with physicians via the FSMB. So you're going to want to apply with that entity, as is the standard process currently, and then that entity will communicate with the department to move that process forward.
How can a third party know what documents they're going to be expected to provide for if it's an educational institution? How do they know what documents they will need to provide for their students?
So the documents they will need to be providing are the same documents that have always been provided. The requirements for application have not changed. What has changed is the sort of the order of operations for providing that documentation. In the new process, the student will reach out to the relevant person at their organization with the instructions and the information necessary to provide that document to the department. So again, really the student is initiating that transaction, and then they should, once the student has initiated that transaction, they should provide the relevant instructions and documentation that is required of the institution.
If you completed your application in our previous system, can you use licensee to download your certificate?
Our licensee is not have the licenses from the old system in licensee yet. That transfer of information is happening over the next couple of months in a couple of phases. We need to do a number of things behind the scenes to ensure that that data is transferred seamlessly, and that things like license number and documentation remain the same in the new system. So that's work that will be happening, but not quite yet.
Okay. If a physician is already in the process of applying for a license, but now wants to apply for an Act 10 or temporary license, should they, in the process in our previous system, should they apply for the Act 10 license in the previous way, or should they use licensee for that?
I would recommend applying for an Act 10 in licensee.
And then right now we have a place that applicants can go to check the status of their application, a website. Are we going to maintain that, or are we going to phase that out?
So in the new system, applicants can check their status of their application at any time by logging into the portal, which is the licensee portal, which they've registered for. If we're talking about third-party information, we are currently in development of a new third-party application portal. I do want to note that our current application lookup is a separate portal from our license lookup. So our license lookup will have information from both our existing system and our new system available to people at any time. The application lookup for applicants, they log into their portal. For third parties who may have interest, that the lookup is still under development. But as is always the case in this new system, it's the applicant who is empowered. So we very, very highly recommend that you talk directly with your applicants about the status of their application, as they will have the most accurate and detailed information.
And Dan, just for all of our benefit, can you explain what we mean by third party when we talk about third party upload or third parties in general?
Sure. Third parties in this context are anyone who is not the applicant. So frequently that means supervising professionals for those professions that have things like training licenses. It means employers. It means colleges and universities, or sometimes it means other states.
Okay, and then do we accept verification from some entities in place or in lieu of having a third party provide documents? So for example, the NPDB or AMA profile, do those serve, can they serve in place of some of the required documents, or is that too specific?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that's probably too technical of a question.
Okay.
And we certainly can have staff evaluate the question, but I wouldn't be able to answer that.
Okay. Someone asked, if you're applying for a training license, is that licensed by exam, or is there a different category for training licenses?
Training licenses would be licensed by exam. It's a different, so after you select, or when you select the license type, the training license will be a drop-down option.
Okay. Can a third party call and inquire about the application process or the status of an application for someone else? So for example, can an employer call and work with our staff to gather details about an application and provide more information?
Candidly, our call center is quite busy, and we do not have the staff to answer every call that comes to the department. And so I really would encourage you to work directly with your applicant. They are the ones in the new system who are empowered with the most information, and by simply logging into their portal, they can provide you with the relevant information.
And what if someone gets an error message in the new system? They thought that a third party uploaded documents and it looked successful, but the applicant gets a message that it wasn't, or it's not appearing in their records that they can see.
I would encourage you to reach out to your reviewer or reach out to the technical help line. I mean, there's two issues with that question. The first is, of course, that we need to get the relevant information to the reviewer so that they can continue to process the application. The other half of that is the technical issue that occurred that resulted in that information not being provided. And so, definitely want to correct both issues.
And then just a clarification. So will there be any way for members of the public, so third parties or anyone out there who wants to know, hey, has Dan's license, what's the status of Dan's license application? Is there a way for third parties to see and gather status information about applicants?
Yeah, as I indicated, I think a few questions ago, if the license has been approved or denied, that information will be in the license lookup portal, that our existing license lookup portal. If you're looking for status of an application that has not yet had a decision rendered, then that information at present is available only to the applicant. We are in the development of a tool that will provide high-level status information to the public about a pending application, but that tool is still under development.
Dan, what recommendations do you have for people who just want to get more comfortable with the system and more fluent in it so that they can advise their students and prospective employees about how to navigate licensee?
Certainly, that was, I think the primary piece of advice I have at the moment is to visit the licensee information page. It has a number of videos, walkthroughs, and FAQs on the page. We are constantly updating that material to make sure that as we see common questions through sessions like this, that we can answer that online for folks. We have had that request, I think, a couple of times. And so that is one that we're going to be taking back for potential future sessions is maybe a collegiate session where folks can interact with the system a little bit more directly, but we're still trying to figure out what that might look like.
And is there a way, if individuals or third parties have feedback on their interactions with licensees, so not really questions, but just thoughts on improvements or requests for changes to the system, is there a way for them to provide those to the department?
Yeah, I would say absolutely provide that information to the technical help team, and the email is fine, and that information is located in the FAQs on our website. And if Jen can find it in short order, we can put it in the chat, or at least the link to the information page. That information is going directly to our team and our technical experts to gather and triage for future action.
And then what are your expectations for the next phase? When are we going to be, for example, transitioning renewals to licensee and transferring some of the information from our legacy systems to our new system?
Certainly, renewals and legacy information will transfer over the next 2 months. After that, we, as I indicated sort of at the top of the questions, we are in the process of identifying a timeline for the development of the remainder of the licenses that the department administers.
And Dan, I know you talked about this already, but we've had a couple of people join. Will there still be a way for the public to check on licenses? So we have our license lookup currently. Will we have a similar license lookup once for licensee licenses?
Absolutely. So a few moments ago, I talked about the application status lookup. I just want to be very clear that those are separate things. But we will have a license lookup. Currently, our existing license lookup will service both systems.
So those are all the questions that we've had so far, Dan. Are there other things that, as you fielded the questions, that you thought you wanted to mention or that you think we should explore?
I certainly think the group here today has done a nice job of covering some of the more nuanced items. I know that Jen, you put your contact information in the chat, and we will continue to collect and respond to things you may think of after this session. So don't view this as an end, view this as the start of a conversation to make sure that we can continue to add. As I mentioned, we'll continue to develop other professions, and certainly we will be making small tweaks along the way to improve the customer experience as well as the internal staff experience and process.
And Dan, there was just a question were other information sessions recorded? Yes, we have some of our information sessions recorded, and we'll be posting those on the website soon, probably by the end of this week if you want to watch the others. And then So again, yes, if so, where to find them? They'll be on our website on the licensee customer information page. I just dropped the link to that in the chat, so you can check and see what's there already. But other resources, we'll continue to add other resources as they're developed. Dan, I was thinking that one of the things that has come up in many of the Q&A sessions that we've had is kind of this shift of control and control of information. And can you talk a little bit about the rationale for the shift of control of information to the applicant?
Certainly, I think there's multiple components to the rationale. I alluded to this at the very beginning of the conversation. You know, applicant-driven processes, right? We want to empower our applicant wherever they are, wherever they live, to seamlessly conduct business with our department. A good example of that is just the change from our mid-1990s systems to now. We didn't have smartphones. I had a flip phone back then, and so or actually mid-1990s, it was probably a bar phone. And so now our platform is fully mobile ready. They're able to complete their application completely on their mobile device if they choose. And in fact, some early data on that, I think we were running about 25% of the applications were completed on a mobile device. So that for me was very exciting. I think, relative to the information, there were a number of instances, particularly with the handwritten forms, that caused the department a great deal of difficulty and increased the opportunity for errors in the application process, either from lack of filling out forms completely, or from staff not being able to read handwriting on the forms when they were filled out. And so an electronic system eliminates those issues by ensuring that applicants complete the required fields, and that of course in an electronic system the information is fully visible. I think another thing that I'm very excited about, and I'm somewhat reminded about this by our ASL interpreter on the line, is that the system is fully ADA compliant. And so juxtaposed to some of our legacy systems, which were in various stages of that compliance, our new system is ready to service all individuals throughout the state of Wisconsin. And that's very important to both the department and the administration at large.
Dan, in the past, some professions have had occupation-specific or license-specific user guides for our application process. And I know I've heard of some that were developed previously within our agency, and then some that were developed outside of our agency with support from us. In addition to the user guides that are already on the website, are we going to be developing any occupation or license-specific resources?
License-specific information in terms of the requirements for the license does continue to exist on each profession's page in our website. That being said, it certainly was our hope that the process broadly would be intuitive enough that the applicant could walk the process with minimal instructions. I think we continue to take the opportunity to develop materials that will be helpful to our applicants as we see the need. So as we identify common errors or common misunderstandings, we're definitely always going to be augmenting the material available to our applicants.
And now that we have about a week and a half of the system up and running, do you have a sense of when we'll have enough information gathered to start giving timeline estimates for kind of, standard complete applications?
Yeah, I will say that we've already had some licenses issued in the new system, and some of those were completed in as little as a couple of days. I think when we talk about applicant-driven processes, we really want to empower the applicant to make the process go as quickly or as I guess as quickly or in a time frame that makes sense for them. Many of our professions require various national exams, which students need to study for. And as we all know, each student is going to be a little bit different. That being said, the timeline to collect that aggregate data, I don't have an exact timeline in mind just yet, but I would like to see a large enough sample size. We are in the heat of graduation season, so we have a lot of incoming at the moment. So my hope is that that sample size grows to a sufficient amount in the near future, but I don't know exactly when we'll reach that critical mass.
Thanks, Dan. We just got a question that's similar to one that we've had in several of the other sessions. And we talked about it a little bit already regarding the shift of control to the applicant. But that also means that that creates or changes the process for third parties. And specifically, our educational third parties in the past have been able to do kind of bulk submission of documents and materials or attestation of documents rather than provision of those documents. And now it seems as though there's more activity being shifted to those third parties. And I will say we are aware and we have gotten that feedback. Dan, can you talk a little bit about any solutions that we might be exploring to address some of that feedback?
I will say that we have, as Jen mentioned, we've taken that feedback. The idea of a bulk upload option is certainly one that we're exploring as a one of our higher priority subsequent developments. In terms of the thought process, one of the things is, as many of you know, and as we've been fairly transparent about, is we lack the resources to keep up with the volume of information that's coming in. Licensure in Wisconsin has grown in popularity, as evidenced by many, I think 2 or 3 new licenses coming on board just over the last 6 months. And in terms of volume of applications has grown exponentially. And so the batch process that existed before may have felt like a batch process to our external partners, but for us internally required the manual entry and sorting of each of those documents. And that created opportunity to delay licensure for applicants. This new process means that that information will be immediately associated with their application, thereby making the process to licensure more expedient. As I said, certainly we see it as not necessarily a perfect solution, as we've heard the concerns, and we are evaluating ways to make that a little bit more seamless for our third-party partners.
Thanks, Dan. We don't have any more questions in the chat right now, but I just wanted to jump in, and we still have some more time. But I wanted to thank everyone for attending and for sharing their questions and for continuing to share their questions and for their understanding. We know change is difficult and technology transitions do pose learning curves and challenges to not only to us, but to our applicants and our third-party stakeholders. So we recognize that this does affect you, and we are doing what we can to, like these Q&A sessions, to give you as much information and help you through the transition as best we can with the resources that we have. So again, thank you for participating. Thank you for your questions. We still have about 17 minutes, so we have more time for more questions that are coming in if anything that you have in mind hasn't been answered. And then, Dan, again, this is going back to OLAS and the documents. This has come up a couple of times in the past through OLAS. Third parties could just confirm certain information, and now we're requiring them to actually provide the documents. Can you explain the rationale for that change?
Yeah, it was. It has to do with an ability to log into the system. The upload portal functionality does not require a login, which means that not only do third parties not have to keep track of logging in information and who in the organization has access to the login, but it eliminates the need to purchase back office licenses for each third party, which would get prohibitively expensive for the department and for the state of Wisconsin. And so that was the rationale. One thing I know has come up in the past relative to OLAS that I think is worth addressing again here, Jen, is the idea that some of their applicants will have conducted business via OLAS and via the older systems, and some will be in the new system. Our recommendation is that they go through the process of, to the extent they can, for as many applicants as possible in the old system. So if you had a batch process, feel free to batch the information into the old system, and then as your applicants contact you and request the upload of the information, to do that in the new system by applicant.
And then this was a question about whether or not we were recording this session, and we are. We recorded all but one of the sessions, and that was a technical problem for that recording. So we'll be posting those on the website. There was also a question about when the next Q&A sessions are, and we don't currently have any scheduled, but that's something that's certainly we can revisit and determine whether there are times or more information that we need to make available. So that's definitely possible. We just don't have anything on the calendar right now. And I would say certainly once we add new occupations to licensee, when we have new phases of development, since there will be new stakeholder groups and new applicants and new third-party partners, will likely have Q&As to address those specific groups, but we will consider adding some additional sessions. I can't promise if or when, but we'll consider adding additional sessions for this phase of the implementation. But I do encourage you to continue to go to our website. There are resources available right now. There are user guides, there are videos, and there are FAQs. And we're going to continue to augment those resources as we go through implementation. So there will be new things added, maybe not every day, but there will be new resources added. And there is a sign up for email updates. And so if you want to get notified about significant additions to the website, you can sign up to that email list, and then you're just automatically going to get notified when we have major additions. So I am working remotely and the garbage truck is outside my house right now. So I'm going to mute myself, but we do have a little bit of a lull. There aren't any other questions in the chat. Dan, is there anything else that you want to talk about while we have some time? I do want to hang out for the full scheduled time in case people join late or something occurs to them later.
I generally, as a rule, try not to fill blank space, although it's a little bit hard in this environment. I think one of the things that I certainly am personally appreciative of is all of the interaction that we've had with our third-party stakeholders throughout this rollout process. I think we've heard general sentiment that just as we in the department were eager to have a modern system and a modern process, our stakeholders and our license holders are equally as eager to interact with a system in the same ways that they buy goods on Amazon or way.com or any of the other modern private solutions that exist. I think it's incumbent. Government is not certainly always the fastest to adopt new technology, and I think there are benefits to waiting a little to make sure that it's a tested and true technology. But in this case, as I mentioned at the top, we've partnered with Salesforce as our platform partner and MTX as our implementer. And many of you know Salesforce is a well-recognized international company that has a great deal of expertise in this field of managing customer interactions, or in this case, license holder interactions. And so the amount of data and information that this will provide that we can utilize to better serve the citizens of Wisconsin cannot be understated. So very excited about that work. I'll give you one brief example of that. The nursing profession has a nursing workforce survey that we do, and that one is required by statute. We partnered last year with DHS and on some federal data collection through some optional surveys. And that process required us to build an entire new survey process in order to accommodate the collection of that data. That was highly valuable to identifying areas of the state that were underserved by specific professions in Wisconsin. And this new system allows us to much more seamlessly implement optional data gathering or optional surveying of our applicants, so that as government applies resources, as even the private sector, as some of our associations look at providing grants or resources to their members, they have the most information possible to do that work. And actually, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Rochelle with the Wisconsin Primary Healthcare Association, who was on the line earlier, I don't know if she's still with us, they were also a key partner in that effort of identifying service gaps throughout Wisconsin.
And Dan, one thing I wanted to add, when you started the session, you talked about delivering government services built on private sector technology. One of the benefits that I see is that we can more quickly take advantage of evolutions and enhancements in that technology. When it's a government created technological solution, then we have to rebudget for upgrades and innovations, and the process is slower. So it will make us a little bit more nimble and better position us to keep up with evolving technology, rather than having such a big transformational change every 15 or 20 years.
I think that's an excellent point. That is certainly been the evolution of technology, just universally, right? We've gone from an environment where you have to build a whole new system every time you want to do something. The existing systems that we had were built by the state of Wisconsin, and I think even until recently housed on some servers that were near room size servers. And so I've heard the stories, and now, just like much of the world, our technology exists in the cloud. And as Salesforce makes updates and creates more innovation around the work that they do to serve us, we get to take advantage of those things and offer those enhancements to the citizen with minimal interruptions. And that, as Jen mentioned, the shift to a new platform is a sort of a transformational thing. It can be a very difficult thing, and it's much better to make these changes incrementally, which is what cloud-based services allow us to do.
Dan, we have a few more minutes, and we had a follow-up question. We talked a little bit earlier about international students, and the impression is that our new system changes the way things work for international students, or changes the requirements for them. Can you speak to whether or not we made any changes to international student or international application or applicant requirements?
I don't have visibility specifically on their application. I will say broadly, we have not changed application requirements. So the requirements for every application should be the same. Most, if not all of those requirements are set both in statute and rule. And so we would have to go through a much more elongated process in order to make those changes.
And just a reminder to people, my email is in the chat. If you if you have specific questions or specific challenges that you've encountered. So for example, if you do have international students and it is appearing that there's something about licensee that is prohibiting them from applying when they wouldn't have been prohibited before, please use the resources that the help desk and the tech support resources within licensee, but you can also pose those specific challenges that you're encountering to Sachin, who is here. You can send him a message in the chat about which application and what the exact circumstances are, because if it's a technical build issue and it requires some kind of implementation or change on the technical side, he can help direct that and address that through the development team. And so Dan, I guess kind of to that point, some of the nature of the questions about requirements changing as a part of licensee. And so as you said, licensee is a application platform, and it did nothing to change the actual requirements for any of the occupational licenses that we issue, correct?
That's correct. And I actually, one of the things to kind of riff off an earlier statement you made or a question that I heard is that changing those changing those questions does happen from time to time. Our boards make adjustments to the rules and to the requirements, which then generates changes to the questions you see on the application. Or sometimes we clarify verbiage in those questions to make them more clear, or to get better or to provide more context around what we need to see from the applicant. In this new system, that process happens immediately and is seamlessly. We can change verbiage on questions at any time, and the system can accommodate that. We can add questions. And so that is another benefit of the system. I mean, I know some may be thinking, well, you can add questions to a paper application. It's very true, but then there's also a process associated with making sure that that paper application is distributed and that people aren't using old versions of the application. And so really changing that seamlessly in an electronic process does provide the greatest amount of flexibility when those things do arise.
Thanks, Dan, and thanks, Sachin. For those who may not have noticed, he put his email address in the chat. So if you do have technical questions or technical feedback about how the process is working for specific occupations or specific students or user groups, please let him know. If it is a glitch, that's something that we can resolve. If it's a statutory or code thing, that's not something that we can resolve independently. But the feedback is good to have regardless, so that we know what the issues are and where the potential solution lies. Right, I think that's all of the questions. Again, we have a couple more minutes, so we will stay. Anyone is welcome to stay. But if we've covered what you need to know, we don't have any more presentation. Dan and I will be here for and Sachin will be here for 2 more minutes. But you're welcome to hop off if you've gathered what you needed to gather. Just remember, in the chat was the link to our customer information page. You can sign up for emails. My personal email is there for specific application questions that you have that may be pending in either of the systems. And Sachin's email is available for technical questions or technical feedback.
With the last couple of minutes remaining, I would like to once again just thank everybody who is still on the line for attending. I did note there are a few more names I recognize, but I won't put anybody else on the spot. I just want to, whether you're representing an organization or you're here as a member of the public trying to learn more about our system, we're excited. We hope that you're excited. This is for us a change that is a long time in coming, and we know it will make our applicants' lives more simple. We view our part of the process as an important part of the process and critical to keeping members of the public safe, but we want to do that in the least obtrusive way possible. And so we certainly appreciate you coming and joining us today to learn more about the system. So with that, I'll stop filling white space. And, you know, again, if you have any questions at any time, please feel free to reach out.
Thanks everyone for attending.
Thank you, everyone.